Welcome back to the Deep Digger Sports Pod. I'm your host, Drew. My other host, right over there.
What's up? It's D. Good to see you again. Be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. Drop some comments below. Let us know your thoughts. We are talking Week 10 NFL action, baby. I'm excited.
All the storylines, but please subscribe. We're getting closer to 500, and yeah, I'm gonna be going crazy when we get there. So let's talk Bears fire their offense coordinator, and a lot of people were. Well, I was seeing Middlecoff talk about this on the volume where they're like, "This is a weird day and time of day to be firing your offense coordinator. Usually do it either like Monday morning. You're firing your coordinator." So he was saying he got pressure from the players, he got pressure from the team locker room itself to make this move, but he was going to ride it out with the OC and keep this struggling offense going.
Oh yeah, 100%. I fully believe that they were going to keep this going. And I did see multiple reports were saying that hey, there was a ton of players. I think they said 7 players came up to them and were like, "We need to make a change at offensive coordinator." And they got the ball moving on this. And I mean, this is something that's happened multiple times during this Bears season where the players have come to them and sat them down and be like, this offense is not working. And I mean, the first time it did work for a couple of weeks where Shane Waldron was like, okay, I understand what you guys are asking for. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to switch it up and we'll move forward from there. On this one, though, I don't know if you heard these reports, but people were also saying that of those players, a fraction of those players were also calling for Tyson Bagent to be at quarterback as well. I
Yeah,
mean, this entire organization's in disarray right now.
yeah, it's falling apart. And listen, they were 4-2. They were in a good spot, but if you look back at those games, their offense was not performing. They were winning defensively, which is what you want to see. But Caleb Williams looked terrible in a lot of those games, and it wasn't just because of him. They're not scripting the first drives of games. Like one of the most basic elements of having a solid offense in the NFL. Why would you kind of throw that out the window and say, well, we're going to have kind of the plays we want, but we're not going to script them and make sure that our team gets in a rhythm? And you saw it week in, week out. Caleb Williams struggling to get going early in games. And when is he good? When everything breaks down in the fourth quarter and he could just react on instinct. And I think a lot of people are saying DJ Moore doesn't like playing with Caleb Williams. And you got veterans starting to question, like, is he a guy that can get us some wins right now? And that's not to say that they don't like him long term, but it's just looking like he's missing throws, and combine that with the offense is getting called terribly, and the offensive line is playing terrible. They don't have a run game, and your quarterback and receivers are just not on the same page. Like everything is leading to a disaster for this Chicago Bears team. And I think going to a player like Badgett, who has more experience, could add some structure and could add a little more life to the team. But you can't switch out your number one pick right now to go to a guy who is a career backup.
But at the same time, like maybe he could use that reset. I mean, this team is going nowhere. The season's kind of over for them. The writing's on the wall. I mean, they were in a good position. They've lost it. This organization is a dumpster fire. Maybe you do just need to kind of, hey, let's reset. Let's not get this guy hurt. We know he's our franchise. We have some players here, and I'm gonna go like DJ Moore is a problem for this team. Like they should have traded him at the deadline. They probably knew that they were gonna get pennies on the dollar for him. So they're like, okay, we'll wait. But he just doesn't get he was such a Justin Fields rider that I just think that Caleb Williams coming into it was never going to get the benefit of the doubt from DJ Moore. In this entire season, he's just had such bad body language. He's just been such a bad vibes guy for this entire team. It's just so crazy to
Well,
see.
I put that also on Eberflus for not being able to control this locker room and really, get a hold of all the narratives going around. Like this guy should have been fired at the end of last season. Let's face it. The only thing I think the worst thing that could happen to the Bears is they started winning games at the end of the year because their defense was playing really well. And that's good because you're like, oh, Montez Sweat can contribute. We have some guys now, but you kind of got your perfect scenario for firing a coach and bringing an offensive mind to help Caleb. Like that kind of ruined that plan. So I don't understand why he's not fired right now.
I mean,
He,
because who's going to step up? You know what I mean? Realistically, who is going to step up on that staff? I think that's the same thing that's going on with Antonio Pierce with the Las Vegas Raiders. They just let go of everybody that could have stepped into that role, and I think it's just a dead man walking. I think we're going to see him as soon as the season ends. He's out.
yeah, definitely. And DJ Moore probably getting traded too. And
But I
you
mean,
look
like,
back too on the draft plan, they take Roma Duze when they could have got a lineman. They desperately need Caleb Williams on the field, just like throwing his hands up, like, what's going on here? What's going on with my life? Because their offensive line is terrible.
yeah, I mean, I do kind of like I did like that Roma Dunze pick. I mean, you double dip, you get two of the premier players that you're really hoping to get. Um, I just don't see the vision for where we're going to be going from here. Like, and then how do you move forward with Caleb Williams now? Like, we see cracks in the armor, we see cracks of like this team foundationally is just not rallying behind him. Can you figure out a way to like find some grace with some of these veteran players? Can we like uplift this guy, or do we need a complete cultural reset? And we're going to bring in a whole nother coach and we're going to just kind of blow it up from here.
Well, I think if you're watching this Bears team, like Caleb Williams, I think 2 years ago was handed this torch of he's the next Patrick Mahomes. He is going to be the number one pick. He's the most talented player in the country. And then last year, I was kind of hesitant of like, is he really like this amazing player who's on head and shoulders above everyone else? And he's going to come in and dominate in the NFL. And then we get to this year where it's like, okay, this guy wants fucking ownership stake in the team. He wants to get paid a crazy amount. He wants to be treated already like Patrick Mahomes, and his production is not there. It's not there. He's looked bad at times. He's shown flashes, but I don't think he's shown enough flashes to where you're like, this is our guy for the next 15 years. I don't think you could definitively say that Caleb Williams, if you take out the draft status and take out the money, that is your franchise quarterback that you're comfortable being with for the next 10 years.
I think he was put in a really tough position as well. There was a lot of people on this team that really did believe in Justin Fields, that wanted to make Justin Fields the guy moving forward, and they were hurt when they moved away from him. And so coming into that, you had to prove yourself above and beyond what you normally have to as a rookie, because you like the team was a little bit slighted. They felt like, hey, we could win with this other guy. And now you're bringing in this dude. And is he all that? Is he really going to uplift us? So I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between Caleb Williams and the rest of this roster.
Yeah, and it's also he's coming from the Pac-12 where the level of difficulty we're seeing it this year. USC can't they're nothing in this new conference. So you see the discrepancy in the talent level. So how good was he really playing in that conference, which I love me some Pac-12, but let's face it, it's not an SEC, it's not a Big Ten.
Yeah, 100%. I understand that as well. But I mean, his game did have flaws coming into it. And I think that they could have really used an offensive coach to get the most out of him.
Like right now, if you had to choose a redraft, are you taking Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May? What order?
I listened to the like Barstool Chicago guys, and they were saying like no matter what, whoever was going to Chicago was going to get screwed over because the foundation there, the organization there was set in place and they were just going to do whatever they were going to do. You know what I mean? And so I think that it was a losing scenario regardless of who you're drafting in that spot.
Yeah, I think the coaching staff it was going to be a bad situation, but there also is like some good there because they had a defense. They have a bunch of weapons in the receiving game. their line could use work. They have some backs who should be performing better than they're performing. And then we're talking about Jaden Daniels. Oh, he doesn't have really any help. He doesn't have all this before the season. So it's not like he went to like the perfect situation. It just happened that things are falling into place for him.
But also, like, again, coaching matters in this league, and Eberflus had proven that he was not a good coach. So why would you keep him in that spot to ruin another quarterback? Like, the Bears just do Bears things, and that's the difference between good organizations and bad organizations. And historically, I know that the Commanders have been a bad organization, but this is a new owner. This is a new philosophy coming into it, and they hired two really good guys to work with this rookie quarterback and build this roster that people around the league felt really good about. I mean, people were trying to call Cliff Kingsbury from Thailand and be like, "Hey, can you come coach for us?" And he was like, I need to take some time." And when he was ready, he did take that call with the Commanders, and I think it ended up being perfect for him to work with hand in hand with Jaden Daniels. And Dan Quinn is a guy who's been around the block. He's taken teams to the Super Bowl before. He's a guy that's really well respected. You can't say anything about that of any coaches that were on the Chicago Bears coaching staff.
Let's say look at Drake May, the guy who just beat him. Like we've seen Drake May make some major growth already in the season. He can run, he can throw, and he's playing with I mean, you're talking about making chicken salad out of chicken shit. Like the the level of talent I'd say is better in Chicago than what Drake May is dealing with in New England. And the coaching staff isn't great either. We like Gerard Mayo is not one of the top level coaches in the league, and look at what Drake May is kind of looking like now. Like we're seeing the guys rally around him, and we're seeing his talent kind of shine through.
Yeah, but also there's no expectations. You're playing with no pressure whatsoever. Yeah, you're playing with the pressure of being an NFL quarterback, but at the end of the day, no one gives a fuck what the New England Patriots are doing. No one
If
thinks
you're
that they are going to be a playoff team. People have such expectations on the Chicago Bears, and other teams have expectations of the Chicago Bears, so they are going to come hard at them. Nobody's gearing up for their A game against the New England Patriots.
if you're Caleb Williams and you're labeled as the next Patrick Mahomes and you're the number one pick and you want like all this status and you want to be treated already as a great quarterback, you need to perform up to these standards that people are putting on you. Like you cannot play, you can't be throwing like 20 yards and a half and just be like, "Oh, well your expectations are high." Like no, I mean Drake May has expectations as well, not as much as Caleb Williams, but he's out there slinging it.
He looks good, but again, you're playing two different games here. You're playing one where it's carefree, they're expecting you to look like a rookie quarterback, and then you have another one where it's like the organization is talking like they were going to make a deep playoff run. Other teams understand that. Like again, no one is gearing up their A game against the New England Patriots. No one is like, "Oh, yes, like we have a really tough matchup. I'm going to go out and showcase." Realistically, they're doing that for the Chicago Bears. They're like, we know that we are going against the number one overall pick. We're going to make him look like shit. We're going to throw so much stuff at him that he doesn't know what to do. We are going to just blitz the hell out of him. And they've been doing that. They've been beating the hell out of him the entire year.
All right, well we got to move on to some other stuff because well let's talk Bryce Young because he beat the Giants last week. They beat the Saints. He's starting to kind of put it together. I mean, he only threw for 126 yards and a touchdown, and it was the Dennis Allen flop Saints, and now the Daniel Jones terrible Giants. They won by 3. You seem to be higher on the new Bryce Young since getting benched than I am. I think it's still not there, but you think he's kind of turned it around.
I think he has turned it around a little bit more. I think he's gotten his confidence back. I mean, realistically, he knows like the worst thing has already happened to me. I've been benched. I've been humiliated. They've already said I'm not good enough. And now that I have my shot again, I'm just going to play what I know I can do. And he is still playing a bit conservative, but you're seeing him start to open up a little bit more. And on top of that, he is feeding off of what Chuba Hubbard is doing. Chuba Hubbard went out and got paid and then just goes out there and continues to ball out. So he is feeling a little bit more confident in that Panthers offense. And I think for the Panthers, that's perfect. Great. We've seen some life in him. maybe we can flip him now this offseason. Or maybe we're like, okay, we can work with this. And if we build around him a little bit more, we can figure out what we can do for the next couple of years. Or we're just going to ship him out and we're going to get what we can for him because he's now looking a lot better. And you're not going to tell me that someone else in the league, there were 7 teams calling for him when he got benched the first times. This offseason, there would be people lining up to go after Bryce Young.
I agree. I think there is going to be suitors, and I think you got to dump him. Like I don't I seen he's made some impressive throws over these past 2 weeks, and I think he has gotten some confidence back. But I think he's just limited physically. I don't think he has a great arm. I don't think he's fast. I don't think he sees the field amazing. Like I don't see enough positives to be like, yes, this guy's worth the draft status. This guy is going to do wonders for the Carolina Panthers. I I would rather them do bring if I was running the Panthers, bring in a veteran quarterback who you know will be solid, who could perform, and rely on a run game and your defense. Run game defense, get a game manager because they're not going to get a guy who's going to game change enough for to overcome the talent disparity on this roster.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And I think too, if you're Canales, like you have a limited window and you have to get wins like in your second year. If not, there's going to be a narrative about you being just not good enough. So you got to figure out something. I think they do move off of him. I think that there is a plethora of teams that are going to be very interested in this guy because realistically, Bryce Young was one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I just don't think all of that skill just goes away and evaporates immediately. I think now we're starting to see a little bit more of that skill on display, that he has a little bit more confidence and is playing like, okay, a little bit more carefree football. And if someone just believes in him a little bit more and puts the pieces around him and like, hey, really nurtures that, we can see what he can actually do, because we've seen it again with another Alabama quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa. And I know this is a guy that realistically a lot of people, have their if, ands, or buts about, but realistically, Brian Flores thought that he was a trash quarterback. But you look at what Mike McDaniel is able to do with Tua Tagovailoa, and it's just night and day, the two. So I think that shipping him to a spot where he is fully believed in would be the best thing for Bryce Young.
I'm going to push back a little bit on the Tua thing, and I'm going to say, as a Tua fantasy owner this season, and my team name being based off Tua, he is a trash quarterback. He is not good, and he keeps putting himself in the concussion danger zone. Uh, he looked awful since he's came back. He's looked awful.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's never mind. I'm not gonna
Ooh.
pre-injury.
Yeah,
He was good. That's what got him paid. He was balling out. I'm talking about that. The going from Brian Flores not believing in him to Mike McDaniel believing in him. Those were two night and day quarterbacks. You got to admit that.
yeah, no, definitely. But he's definitely fallen off, and he just
Well,
holds the
yeah.
ball he holds the ball ridiculously long for no reason. He's running back into defensive linemen instead of just rolling out and throwing the ball away. He's fumbling. He's throwing terrible picks. Yeah, it's a bad time to be my fantasy team. Um, but
Brain injuries are serious.
let's
That's
move
it. That's
on
all.
to. Do you want to talk Russell Wilson and the Steelers?
Let's do it. I mean, I think that they are gonna they expect themselves to make a very deep push in this NFL playoffs this year. I'm very excited for what we can do, and we are seeing a resurgence in Russell Wilson. And I'm going to go ahead and pat myself on the back. I believed in it. I thought that he was going to do this. So go ahead, good round of applause for me, because I believed in it. I knew that Russell Wilson, I don't think he was going to turn all the way back into what he's looked so far, but I thought he was going to look a lot better in a Steelers uniform, and he has. He's come out here and he's just gotten all of the moon ball. I know Chris Collinsworth loves to call out the moon ball. He's gotten the moon ball back, and with that, his aura is just completely replenished.
Yeah, I'll say I was one of the people not really believing in Russ, and I didn't want to believe it week in week out. But the guy is just letting it loose. I saw an old clip of him in Denver where the lineman is yelling, the D lineman's yelling at him in his face, his own D lineman. And I was like, man, you wouldn't have thought from that moment to now that this guy is leading a 7-2 Steelers team and they're looking really good. And it's not just that he's like game managing, like this guy is making throws. Like he's unlocked Pickens in a way that just Justin Fields couldn't and Kenny Pickett couldn't. And I think it's just the confidence of being like, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna put it up and let the athlete go make the play.
Yeah, and again, I said it last week. I'm going to say it again this week. Them making the move for Mike Williams is a perfect complement to what they were already doing, and we've seen it this past week with touchdowns to George Pickens, with the Pat Fryermuth, and then the Mike Williams touchdown. Like all these pieces fit perfectly with what Russell Wilson will do, and which Russell Wilson will turn it out. He will be like, I trust you. You go out there and get it. And Mike Williams complements that perfectly.
And you know why this was the perfect fit now that I'm sitting here looking at this? Because all these crazy guys who went to Pittsburgh and you never heard a peep out of them, Mike Tomlin kept them all in check until they left. Russell Wilson needed that shit because Russell
Yeah.
Wilson was a menace at the end of Seattle. He was a terrible team guy in Denver. So to go here and you haven't heard anything about Russell doing anything that's, oh, me. Like he's been all about the team. And I think that just goes to show like Mike Tomlin had to sit this motherfucker down and being like, this is how it's gonna be. You're either with us or you're not. And I think it showed that Mike Tomlin was really going to hold that to him by not putting Russell in and letting Justin Fields try to earn the job.
Yeah. And I think, did you see the highlight tape where it shows like the different touchdowns from this past week? And then afterwards, it shows Mike Tomlin congratulating Mike Williams. Did you see that?
Nuh-uh.
Well, in it, it was just so cool to see. After Mike Williams scores the touchdown, Tomlin comes up to him and he's like, "Congratulations, you're a Steeler now." And it's just like such a cool moment. But that shows what this Steelers culture is, and it starts at the top with Mike Tomlin. Everybody comes in here and wants to work for Mike Tomlin's respect. Even George Pickens, like George Pickens has his moments and does whatever, but realistically, Mike really does pull him and rein him in, and has dinner, makes him have dinner with him at his house, and does all these things to try to rein in what George Pickens can do. But honestly, he does want him to go out there and just be a dog. But that is 100%. You're right. I think Russell Wilson needed an organization in a town just like this, where it's not Hollywood, it's not the egos getting to his head. It's Pittsburgh. We're blue collar. We go out there, we do our thing. We are the Steelers. We're tough. We're ready for anything, and we just take no nonsense. It's Steelers football. I think that is perfect. And Russell Wilson just kind of, he's like a almost like a chameleon, where he will shape into wherever his surroundings is, and he's fitting this team perfectly.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the matchup this week with Baltimore because I really don't know who I want to pick in that game. You want to go Ravens, but they've looked like every week it's up
Up
and
and
down,
down.
up and down, just like Derrick Henry's pants. Oh, let's talk about the Chiefs because they should have lost this game. They get down. Broncos are going to hit a field goal to win it. Broncos outplayed them this whole game. Broncos looked really good, and they blocked the field goal. They survived. There's someone had texted me, "Is this the worst? What are they 9-0?
Yeah,
Like, is the worst 9-0 team ever?" And I just don't know because it looks so ugly, and you don't feel like they're winning these games, but then they're winning.
it's so crazy. I'd seen that meme going around, and it's like the field goal gets blocked, and someone's like, "All right, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Is this devil magic? Like, what is going on here?" You're 100% right. They play losing football. It feels like they're just an ugly slog of a game, but somehow they come out and get the win. I just don't know how they keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. And they haven't looked better down the stretch. Like this, I keep saying, like the first few weeks, I was like, hey, this is the worst that they're gonna look. They're gonna be scary down the stretch, and they just continue to look bad. I just don't understand it.
I mean, it's got like the luck's gonna run out at some point, right?
I don't know. It should have ran out already. I mean, they have who do they have? The Bills coming up this week, right? That's gonna
Yeah.
be a tough one, and
Well,
I think it's on the road as well.
here's the thing where we've seen teams like this in the past who you're like, how are they still undefeated or how are they winning this many games? And then they get to the playoffs and they start to fall apart because it's like, oh, well, so many one score games, it's like a coin flip in the NFL. And it just happened to break their way so many times in the regular season, and then it didn't break their way in the playoffs. So I mean, I think they're in danger of that. Like if you keep on relying on these close games to just the coin to fall in your direction, at some point it's not going to work out well for you.
Yeah, I think eventually they do need a loss just to like jolt them and give them the scare that they need to get like things situated because winning does cover up a whole lot. And I'm sure they do hear the outside chatter, but realistically, how serious do you take that when you're back to back champs already? You're undefeated so far throughout this season and you really haven't played your best ball. Like, how serious do you take those things moving forward? Because we haven't really seen them improve on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it feels like they're coasting kind of, and you've seen when teams coast, can they really turn it back on at the right moments? And this is a big week for the Bills because this is the most vulnerable. We keep saying this every week.
Yeah.
The most vulnerable you're gonna get the Kansas City Chiefs, and if you can't beat them now, just fucking call it a season because they're gonna be definitely ready to go once playoff comes around, just schematically and just mentally.
I can't see the Chiefs losing to the Bills. I just can't. I can't. I don't
Until we see it.
mentally. I don't have that. It's blocked out in my mind. I can't see that possibility.
Well, I mean, we'll see. They got to do it this week. They Bills beat the Colts this last week, so they're rolling a little bit. The offense put up
That's
30.
another garbage franchise in the Indianapolis Colts.
No, we're not talking Colts this week. Let's talk two kind of dumpster fires going on right now. The Jets getting blown out by the Cardinals and the Eagles blowing out the Cowboys. Who I think I asked you this before, but who's in a worse spot right now, the Jets or the Cowboys?
The Cowboys, 100%. It's the Cowboys. I said this last time. We've had this conversation. It hasn't changed for me. It is still the Cowboys, and the number one reason, Jerry Jones, buddy. I thought you were gonna finish my sentence. You didn't. It's Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones continues to prove that it's all about him. It's his ego. It's what he wants. It's the reason that Mike McCarthy is still there. It's the reason that didn't make a move at running back because he was like, oh, we feel really good about Ezekiel Elliott. He said that this week. We feel really good about Ezekiel Elliott. And we're not living in the past. We feel good about Ezekiel Elliott today. What are we talking about, bro? Like, he is not. This is the worst running back group. It is one of the worst wide receiving groups, minus CeeDee Lamb. And at quarterback,
One of the
now
worst
you're
quarterback
down.
groups.
Yeah, you have a quarterback group that just isn't up to par. You put in this brand new stadium and you're blinding CeeDee Lamb and other receivers
And
when you get into the red zone.
did you see what Jerry Jones said when they asked him if he would put up blinds?
No, what did he say?
He was like, "Well, I guess we're just gonna tear down the whole stadium since I built this new stadium. We're just gonna tear down the whole stadium since it doesn't work." Bro, go to fucking IKEA and get some blinds.
Tint the windows. What are we doing?
What are you doing? And
It could be easily fixed.
they asked Micah Parsons too how he feels about Mike McCarthy not having a contract for next year, and he said he's more concerned about guys like Zach Martin who put in more work than Mike McCarthy ever did. So that. Oh, and then Jerry Jones is saying that the team actually played better without Dak. So there's so much going on in Dallas where if I'm Micah, I want to get the fuck out of there. Someone
Yeah,
else pay
but
me
also
$5.
Micah just needs to shut the fuck up at certain points. Like, not everyone needs to like say you as a professional, you don't need to say everything that's on your mind, Micah. Calm down. Just eat it. You don't have to say what you think of Mike McCarthy and put him down and elevate guys like Zach Martin. We understand how hard Zach Martin works, but You just put a target on Mike McCarthy's back, whether you wanted to or not. And I know he went on his podcast afterwards and like, that's not even what I meant. And I just wanted to highlight like all these things of
I'm like,
how I feel
yeah,
about my
yeah,
brothers.
but if you respected Mike McCarthy, that would have never came out in
Yeah,
that way or even came up.
100%. So
And the
it was
same with Jerry Jones with Dak. Like he wouldn't be really comparing or being like, "Oh, well, we're not worried that we don't have Dak because we're good with this guy." If he really thought that Dak was good enough to win games for them.
yeah. And I mean, again, it's Jerry Jones' fault that they got in that Dak situation because if Dak had moved on in free agencies, they would just still owe a ton of money on their cap towards Dak Prescott, who'd be playing for another team. So you had to sign him. So it's all just stupid decisions that stroke an old man's ego.
Dallas feels like when you go hang out with like someone else's friend group and it's like they all kind of don't like each other and you feel like really uncomfortable. And you're just like, well, I just gotta, I'm here for the next 3 hours and I gotta deal with it. Like that's kind of how it feels like this locker room in Dallas is right now.
No, I'll tell you what it is. Do you remember the movie Project X?
Yeah.
It's fun. Everything's going really well. Like, oh, this is awesome. That was the Cowboys a couple years ago. And then like halfway through the movie, it gets to the point where they've stayed at the party way too long. And you look around and people are way too fucked up. There's people are destroying things. The house is a mess. Everything's going wrong. That's 100% what the Cowboys have stayed at the party way too long. They should have got out of there.
Jerry Jones, man. Jerry Jones stayed at the party way too long. All right, we're going to wrap up the NFL talk with the 49ers because Jake Moody, Tabor Pepper, Deebo Samuel got some beef, but apparently Pepper said, "Oh, we that beef got left in this last week." I think it's ridiculous that you're defending a kicker who missed 3 fucking field goals in the game and he gets the game ball cuz he hit the last one. Like why is Jake Moody still on this roster when we had 2 guys come off the couch and perform better than him?
Yeah, I don't get it either. I mean, realistically, this isn't just like a one-time thing that's happened with Jake Moody where, hey, he's coming off of injury, like he's going to get into his rhythm. We seen it last year where he cost them games, like crucial games down the stretch. And it's like, what are we doing here? It's always something with this guy. You never really feel 100% confident when he goes up. And it's just like, I think it's because they allocated that draft pick to him. Otherwise, if he was just a undrafted free agent, I don't think we're having this conversation. I think we moved on to another kicker.
Yeah, and I think they should at least at the end of this year because it when your special teams is regarded throughout the league as maybe the worst, I don't think you have the right to say, Debo, don't get in my guy's face when he misses 3 field goals in a game and you've been historically terrible for these past couple years.
Yeah, but also like that's on Kyle Shanahan. That's 100%. That has been the rap with Kyle Shanahan his entire tenure as a San Francisco 49er head coach. He does not give a shit about special teams. He hires whoever as the special teams coordinator, and he's like, okay, go ahead and ruin the game for me 3 times a year. Like, that's his rap. Like, that he just doesn't care. He would much rather, like, poke himself in the eye, like, multiple times than watch a kicker or a punter practice.
Yeah, and it always comes back to bite him in the end, but we'll see this year. They got CMC back. Ricky Pearsall looked pretty good. He was like rookie of the week, offensive rookie of the week. The defense, I hope Drake Greenlaw comes back and just solidifies what's going on right there. But
Diamador Lenore just signed a
yeah,
contract extension for 5 years.
$92 million for Demo. And I think well earned. He's been a solid corner for the 49ers, and especially on the other end of Travarius Ward.
Yeah,
So,
and shout out to Travarius Ward. I believe he just lost his daughter like a couple weeks ago,
yeah.
so he's battling through some things. Hopefully, everyone sending positive vibes. But yeah, despite all the special teams and everything going on with that, I do feel pretty positive about the 49ers moving forward. I think they're getting healthy at the right time, and they could make a really deep push into this playoffs because they've done it before. And this is a team that's a bunch of veterans. They know what they can do. They've been there and they're not afraid of anybody. They do not care. And yeah, the Detroit Lions are the best team in the NFC, or I believe they're the best team in the NFC. They have a chance to prove it on December 30th. And I think the 49ers are just chomping at the bit to get to that game.
Yeah, and we just saw the Texans kind of expose the Lions for the first half of that game. I just don't know if the Niners have that defense to do what the Texans did in that first half. But we'll see. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces, especially they brought back Deshaun Gibson. We'll see with Dre Greenlaw when he's back. We'll see with that defensive line. We don't really know the full picture of what's this team is gonna look like by the end of the year. But that's all we're gonna have for the NFL this week. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you comment. We're talking ball every week. So we'll see you next time.
Later.
See you.